Welcome back to the Scarfey Spurs podcast. In this episode, then, an awful lot to talk about, isn't there? After Igor Tudor has departed by mutual consent, the club say Roberto De Zerbi seems on the verge of joining Tottenham, but do this club have a plan B? I'd argue personally, if I had to give my view, that they've never had a plan B. Is this time going to be different? So an awful lot to discuss. Are we heading in the right or wrong direction? I think there's strong feelings on this that need addressing. There's a lot to cover, so do stay with us from the start till the end of the podcast. But let's introduce then the fantastic panel that joined me tonight to dissect everything. Firstly, Chris, great to have you back on. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you very much. It's nice to be on when there's no refereeing controversy to talk about, so happy days.
Absolutely, international break, and there's no refereeing controversy or anything like that to talk about. But of course, with Tottenham, it's never a quiet day, never a quiet hour either. Chris, thank you. Simon, great to have you back on, joining us from Sweden. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, thank you. Just
No
happy to
worries.
be back in the pod. See what we can get into.
Well, we're happy to have you. Thank you. And again, awful lot to talk about. Cam, thank you very much for coming on. Of course, as well as being a regular here, you're also a regular on the Scarfey Talks Premier podcast. So thank you for giving me so much of your time in 2026 already. But how are you doing tonight?
Hello, I'm doing well, thank you. I'm glad to be on the podcast. Obviously, a lot to talk about when it comes to Tottenham, and we're not even playing as well.
I know, there's always something to talk about with Tottenham.
Just me and myself there, sorry, but a lot to talk about even when we're not playing. So, yeah, glad to dissect the managerial search that we're on, and yeah, happy to be here.
Absolutely that. Thank you, Cam, very, very much. And yeah, do stay tuned. You can get in touch by the usual ways. You know by now. Drop me an email, scarfharry323@gmail.com, or simply leave a comment. This is live on YouTube because it is a live podcast. That's why sometimes things will go wrong ultimately. But if you do comment, we can read out your comment live. But also will be seen and I will reply to as well personally afterwards if you do get in touch. Because certainly a lot going on right now at the club. Let's get straight into it then. I want to talk about Igor Tudor in the first segment because he has now left the club. And the following statement from the club reads, "We can confirm that it has been mutually agreed for head coach Igor Tudor to leave the club with immediate effect." Going on to say that his assistants have also left their respective roles, for example, goalkeeping coach and physical coach. And they go on to say, "We thank Igor and all his staff for their efforts during the past 6 weeks in which they've worked tirelessly. We also acknowledge the bereavement that Igor has recently suffered and send our support to him and his family during this difficult time. An update on a new head coach will be provided in due course." And again, on the record, would like to, myself and also on behalf of the podcast, send Igor best wishes, thoughts and condolences go straight out to him and also his family. But Chris, if I may start with you, do you believe this is the right decision? I think it's what we all kind of expected in the end, that maybe took longer though than some of us thought.
Yeah. I mean, if I tried to adopt the other position of it's not the right decision, I don't know what I'd argue for to try and keep him. It was just a disaster from start to finish. There's not a lot positive to say about it. Like, he came in, he was there to give us a bounce and improve things, and basically everything got worse, didn't it? So it was just a disaster. One of those things where, in years to come, where we're trying to remember Spurs managers, Tudor will be the one that everybody really struggles to name because it was just such a forgettable 6 weeks or whatever it was. So, yeah, just write it off, move on, see what's next. But it's a desperate Hail Mary now as a hope that we can try and stay in the Premier League. I don't think anyone's ever sacked a manager at this stage in a relegation battle and stayed up. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, Chris, thank you for your thoughts there to kick us off. Simon, if I can come to you, do you agree with this decision? And, also talk to me about, it looked like we build some momentum. We go and get a draw, get a point at Anfield in the Premier League, our first point under Igor Tudor. Then we go and beat Atletico Madrid in the second leg of the Champions League. Did you think we turned a corner at that point? And why didn't we ultimately carry that momentum into the Forest game?
Yeah, I was getting to a point where I was getting a little bit more positive about what might happen under Tudor. I don't know if I can actually judge if it was the right or wrong decision, as it was a mutual decision. So might have been him feeling like he didn't have the energy or the focus needed to continue doing the work. And if that's the case, that's he can't continue, so it would be the right decision. I don't know if I totally agree with him being a disaster. As you pointed out, I thought I saw a couple glimmers of hope in the sense that the performances started to look a little bit more defensively, not defensively solid, but a little bit more solid. That fourth game being a step back for sure, but considering what the alternative is, which is us, without a manager, with what is it? 7 games left, 6 games, 5 games,
7, yeah,
7 games left. That's a pretty tough position to be in. So yeah, it's hard for me to kind of judge if it was the right or wrong decision, but I do feel like he did his best. He was in a really tough situation, considering all the injuries, considering he had not a lot of time to kind of instill his system and his way of playing. Players look a little bit more fit. They look bought in, but in the end, it wasn't good enough. You can't argue with that. As Chris pointed out, 1 point out of, what was it, 5 games?
Yeah.
Not counting on the win in the Champions League. It's not good enough, right? And considering the position we were in. So it is what it is. We're in a position now where we have to start over, and let's see what it takes us.
Simon, thank you. Cam, if I can come to you lastly on this, can you react and give me your thoughts now? You've had a good 24 hours or so for it to settle at the time of recording. So, yeah, your reaction to Igor Tudor's departure. Is it just one of these decisions or end outcome, I suppose, that benefits all parties?
Yeah, I think it does benefit all parties, to be honest with you, because I think after the news came out that Igor Tudor's father had died, I think Igor and the club kind of both spoke together and probably thought it was best for all parties if he was to leave. I feel personally that maybe Igor thought that he wouldn't be able to continue at the club, and perhaps with this time that we've had in the international break and the time that there still is left in the international break, there's time for the club to bring in someone different. And yeah, I think with Tudor leaving, he wasn't exactly great with us at the time, but he did have us in terms of results. I think he was brought to bring results, and he hasn't been able to do that at all. He got the result at Anfield, which I think positive performance, positive game, and then had that game in the Champions League as well against Atletico. And I said after that game as well, by the way, that if he's going to win this, if he's going to lose this Forest game, let's say, I think I said if we lose by 2 or 3 goals, and it's a bad performance, then I was like, okay, the club have 2 to 3 weeks now to evaluate the situation and bring in someone new. And of course, the loss is bad in itself, but I think with the circumstances which has happened with Tudor's family, of course, I think it kind of was the right decision at the end of the day. And I think it's up to the club now to bring in the right person and bring in someone who's actually going to finally get results, because Tudor wasn't able to quite do it when he was managing us. And I did think it was the right decision. I mean, with everything considered, it was the right decision, and I think we have to move on from Tudor now and look at someone who's going to save us. With, of course, Tudor getting sacked, this is probably the final kind of chance now to bring in someone who's going to save us from the situation, because we're in a horrible situation right now. And right now, in this time during the international break, I think this is the final chance to bring someone in.
Cam, thank you very much. Sticking with Igor Tudor for now, though, Simon, if I come to you, several sources that include TalkSport, they include Give Me Sport, a load of sources like that. They've all said that Igor Tudor has not received a payout since leaving Tottenham. So, what do you make of this, and do you think Tudor deserves credit for that?
I'm guessing I take from that it was a mutual decision. That wasn't just lip service or them trying to be respectful. It was actually him feeling like he wanted or needed to leave, as well as the club seeing that the timing worked out in a way where they could get some time to find someone new. I mean, credit to him. I have no hard feelings towards him. I think he did his best. He was in a really tough situation. I mean, this team and these players have been underperforming for a while. I don't think they've been helped. I think we all have a nagging suspicion of the team being undercoached up to the point where he came in. You got that feeling from the stuff he was saying and from seeing the players, running harder and being a little bit more physically up to par, at least at the end of his short run. Credit to him. I think, I haven't, paid attention a lot these last couple of weeks to social media and stuff, but from the small sample size that I've seen, it seems like a lot of people have respect for him, despite the poor run of results.
Okay, Simon, thank you very much. Chris, can I come to you? I feel like tonight, like we have at several points of the season, is going to be a real opportunity to have a go at and ultimately rightly hold the board and Enoch to account over various poor decisions and the action that they've taken. But on this in particular issue with Tudor, do they deserve credit for the way they've handled it? I personally think that they deserve a little bit of credit. We only know what we see. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes, or whether he's like, look, you step down now, or, etc. You don't know what's going to go on. You don't know what has gone on. Let's be clear with that. But it looks like to me, from an outside point of view, that they have handled it, as has Igor Tudor, with not taking that payment, with class. And ultimately, the easy thing to do, if you forget about his father's passing, was to sack him on that game. But obviously, it looks like they haven't done that because of the fact that his father has passed away. So have the club dealt with that in the right way, with professionalism and with class?
I don't think we really know anything that goes on, right? For me, they're two separate things. It's unfortunate. Obviously, it's sad when we lose our fathers. I've already been through that. It's a very sad thing that happens to anyone. But his performance, you've got to be professional, and you can't allow a personal issue to cloud a professional judgment. Have they delayed because of that? Who knows? It also seems like they've very clearly got their sights set on one. I know we're coming on to this one person in particular, so it might just be that they've delayed until they've got some sort of sign that their preferred target is open to negotiations. So,
but Chris, sorry to jump in, I suppose the real question is here. Yeah, go on, Simon.
Just when did he die? Was it like I haven't paid attention. So.
Yeah, it was on the day of the Forest game, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I believe it was around that kind of half an hour period, I think, as well, of that final whistle. But Chris, the question is here, was it important for you that the club handled this with care and with careful consideration, bearing in mind what happened? I know that their focus is primarily the football club, but do you know what I mean? It would have been not a good look for the club, is my point, if he'd been gone on that night. And I just feel otherwise, when you lose 3-0 to a team you're battling with in a relegation battle down the bottom, any other situation, he would have been gone. I think they've handled it rightly. But you've got the likes of, the reason I mentioned this, right, context, I should say, the likes of, for example, Teddy Sheringham's come out and said how it's disgraceful, how Tudor's still in the job, how he wasn't sacked on the day. I just think the reason that it took so long was because of the family bereavement.
Yeah, but we don't know that, so I'm not going to give them credit for something that I don't know. So I think it could equally just be true that if they had no plan at all for who was going to be next, and they had no inclination, or no sort of idea that anyone that they wanted was open to contract talks, I don't think they'd have done it at all. Because I think it would have been a terrible look for them to get rid of Tudor and then be seen to be scrambling around with zero plan or zero target. So I don't know why it's taken a week. If those are the reasons though, and they're trying to be a bit sensitive, then you can't knock anyone for. He had enough to deal with in the this time last week without Tottenham on the phone going, "Can we talk about your contract?" So. If that's the reason, fine, no problem with that. But I'm not going to sit here and go, I'll credit to them for that, because I've got no idea whether that was the reason or not. And given their past record of decision making, I'm not automatically inclined to believe that it was good judgment from them. We just don't know is the answer.
It's hard to kind of give credit when the whole situation is so murky and messy.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't know. We're going off reports.
He comes into this really awful situation with like 12 outfield players. He's supposed to make something happen in a couple of days. Like he came in on a Monday, we had a game on a Saturday, something like that. Like a whole new system, limited amount of players, a lot of the best players, not there. How do we judge his performance? He clearly didn't succeed, but what can we expect from a really tough situation? I feel like people want to, and also should we have appointed a interim manager at all? Like we knew we were in trouble. What kind of do players really buy into a coach they know won't be there long term? I mean, the whole mess is created by these executives at a board level. And so it's really hard to kind of give them credit for, when they stumble into a good decision, when 90% of the decisions we've seen have been so bad.
That's a very good point.
So you definitely have a point, Harry, but I just feel like it's so hard to kind of, give them credit when they've made this mess themselves.
No, absolutely. My point is more the fact, I think, before we jump to why is he still in the job, I think let's just be sensible about it. Maybe, just my view anyway. I'm not saying that I'm right, but I just view it and go, look, what's just happened. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the reason why it took so long. And again, they were careful with it. They went, right, give him a few days.
I got into it that deep because what Teddy's saying is also totally media exaggeration.
He says some good things, but I think he's forgetting about the family bereavement, or certainly not having that compassion that's needed.
Yeah, and also the context of, everything he had to kind of deal with. So I feel it's hard to kind of blame the people that are, thrown into this mess to try to sort it out. When there's people above them who keep making these messes, right? Putting them in bad situations.
Simon, thank you. Cam, can I come to you lastly before we do move on from Igor Tudor? I know it's in the past, but I think upstairs have to be held accountable for this. The appointment of Igor Tudor, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway for the sake of impartiality. Was it the wrong appointment in the first place? And if it was or wasn't, whatever you say, ultimately, can you even understand why they've done it? We're talking about someone with no Premier League experience, and 2 games after joining the club said, I've never been in this situation before. I mean, it clearly, even to last week when he's still in the job, doesn't know what he's got in front of him. No idea of the Premier League relegation battle, no affiliation to Tottenham. Just didn't make sense at the time. It doesn't even make sense now, does it, looking back?
Yeah, well, I think the board are actually to blame for 2 things. One, Thomas Frank, he should have been sacked sooner. So I think, there was better opportunities to get in a better manager at that point. And 2, I think they brought in a manager who has no Premier League experience. They should have brought someone in who knows the league. Otherwise, you wouldn't have Igor Tudor talking about, I've never been in this type of situation before. I've never had to deal with this, because managers who have been in the Premier League, of course, not all of them have, but they have a grasp of the league. They kind of understand almost what it's like to be, in this kind of role as a Premier League manager. I did think it was the wrong decision for sure, because it was so random when it came out, because we were looking at like all types of names, even like former Tottenham like players, coaches, etc. And then randomly we just hired this random person who had managed in Serie A for like 1 or 2 clubs, and I hadn't heard much about him personally as well. It was kind of the first time I almost heard his name. So I was very surprised, to be fair. I do think it was the wrong decision. We probably should have, I think we should have had, or not we, but I think the board should have definitely had a better judgment on who to get. And, I do feel for Tudor as well, but I do think that the board should have brought in someone who just knows the Premier League better. And it does look like a very stupid decision now when you look at it.
Cam, thank you. Just a couple of stats there before we do.
We could have sacked Frank in November and had a new full-time, long-term coach in, right? And we would never be in this situation.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we sacked him in like February, I think it was. Maybe even might have been a little earlier.
It's Dumb and Dumber, just stumbling down.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking no mountain.
Well, we were actually going to mention Thomas Frank in a minute, and just give me a minute with that. A couple of stats beforehand then, and this is crazy, really. Tottenham have sacked more managers than they've had home wins in the Premier League since May 2025. Managers sacked since May 2025 has been 3, and home league wins has been 2. Not good. And then you've got the big 6 clubs' lowest win rate in the Premier League history, and Tottenham top that chart is one thing we are top of, to be fair, and that's a 0% win rate under Igor Tudor. The other second lowest, have a guess, it was Thomas Frank at Tottenham with 27%. So not a good look at all. And you've got Graham Potter with Chelsea, Ruben Amorim, Man United, and Roy Hodgson with Liverpool to go right back beyond that. But the point is, 2 Tottenham managers at the top of that list. It's a list we don't want to be top of. Very briefly then, because there's a lot to discuss, and I don't want to give this guy too much airtime, but Martin Keough believes that Tottenham should reappoint Thomas Frank. Here are his exact words. He said, "I know people say he should never go back, but Thomas Frank might have been allowed back in the building. Let's try and pick it up where we left off. It seems the obvious option." Chris, as you know, you gave Thomas Frank a lot of time. I did as well. That's why I'm asking you this question. I mean, does this reek of somebody that clearly hasn't watched Tottenham at all or much, let's just say, this season, and ultimately is out of touch with the club?
Was it Martin Keough, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and this is nothing...
On TalkSport as well. This was today as well, and he debated the Spurs fan.
I promise you this is nothing to do with the fact he's an Arsenal fan or an ex-Arsenal player. He is one of the most nonsensical pundits there is out there. His utter nonsense and his massive bias is just unbelievable. So I'd never... And there are plenty of ex-Arsenal players who I would willingly listen to as a pundit, but he is absolutely not one of them. So I wouldn't throw any credence onto any opinion he ever gives on anything, to be honest. But in terms of Frank, I'm not a fan of ever going back anyway. For that reason, I was never particularly on the board with the idea of reappointing Pochettino. I don't think... I'm not necessarily sure that we'd be in this position if we kept Frank, to be honest. I'm not saying he was doing a good job, but I think Igor Tudor has clearly done even worse. But it's gone, it's done and dusted. It wasn't good under Frank. There's absolutely no reason to explore or entertain the idea of going back to that any more than there is going back to Ange. That's another silly opinion in my view. So yeah, I wouldn't give Martin Keough's opinion the time of day particularly, but I hadn't heard that comment, but it sounds like the kind of silly nonsense that I'd expect him to come out with.
It didn't surprise me, but I just thought, really, I have some shame. And again, this is coming from someone that gave Frank time knowing what these owners on board are like. But Simon, before we move on, last question on this. I mean, there is a bigger question here that a lot of people will ask, and I will ask it as someone that did defend him. Have the media, in the past mainly, but even now, it was shown today, shown Thomas Frank a lot of respect and protection. And ultimately, a lot of people look at that and go, Tudor didn't get that, Ange didn't get that, so-and-so didn't get that. So do you think that Frank's kind of been protected by the media and not come under the same scrutiny as other managers, or the same scrutiny that he should be held account to?
For sure. I think a lot of people in the media were not willing to listen to Spurs fans and people who regularly watch our games and go to our games. And so it's this thing, right, where you have this cognitive dissonance where a lot of them probably were for the appointment, right? And we've all seen this with friends in the fan base. When you're for someone, when they come in, you have a hard time letting go of that bias. And I felt a lot of that was going on. And so, to me, it was just another reminder that a lot of pundits don't really watch our games, right? And so they were going based on, a reputation that he built in the league for 7 years. While, someone like Ange that had, no previous experience and relationships in media, didn't get that kind of, treatment. Conte, Jose, they had another type of reputation, so they got another treatment. It's just bias. So, yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Simon, thank you. Next, then, I do want to move on to Roberto De Zerbi, because reports have escalated very, very quickly. And the latest point that I can tell you is it looks like that I would personally say I think he is going to join Tottenham. This is not giving me my opinion. This is what I think will happen in terms of that's the way that it seems to be heading towards. It looks like De Zerbi will be letting Tottenham know his decision, but it's highly likely it's a yes because, again, the likes of Fabrizio Romano have used the words Tottenham throwing the kitchen sink at it. And when you throw the kitchen sink at a manager, money does talk eventually. Cam, can I start with you on this? De Zerbi, where do you stand on this? Do you want Roberto De Zerbi at Tottenham or not? Let us know your thoughts, Cam.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different from Tudor for sure. I think it's not going to be an interim role; it's going to be a permanent role, which they're definitely changed from the interim route as well. So yeah, I think it could definitely be a breath of fresh air, but I do think that there are perhaps problems that come with him as well. I think that in terms of like man management and like managing players, perhaps he's a bit questionable about. I think also there's reports came out as well, at least from what I saw as well, that Tottenham have offered De Zerbi a long-term deal as well. And I think that De Zerbi, I think he's a good short-term manager. I think he's good in those type of situations, but he's not lasted like not that long at like most of the clubs he's been at. He wasn't there that long at Brighton. He wasn't there that long at Marseille either. He done good jobs when he was there, but I mean, my personal view is that if he is going to come in and he's going to keep us up, for example, my problems are, okay, where are we going to be next season with him? Because we're not offering him an interim job. He doesn't want an interim job. He wants a permanent role. And that's what he wants. My problem is he going to, cause problems next season? Is this situation going to go into next season? I don't know. But me personally, I mean, I am for it if he can, keep us up. And I think he knows the league as well. So I think it does make a lot of sense. There's not many other names that I would go for. I know there's a lot of like Tottenham associated like kind of names like Redknapp, like Ryan Mason, etc., etc. I mean, I think when you look at those names compared to De Zerbi, I think it just makes a lot of sense to pick De Zerbi purely based off the fact that Redknapp's not managed in years, so I don't know how we'd do here, to be honest. I know that you've got that kind of like, okay, like they're Tottenham associated, they know about the club, all that stuff. But I think if you look at, De Zerbi as a manager, it is the right choice because he is genuinely a good manager. In my personal opinion, I think he is a good manager. He done well with Brighton, he done well with Marseille as well. I think if we're going to offer him that long-term role, I don't know. I've said this already. I don't know where it's going to put us next season, but this season, I think it is definitely I think he's definitely in contention for the role. And if he can keep us up, I'm personally all for it. I just want to get out of this situation. I do think he is the man to do that, to be fair. And there's not many. I mean, it's good time, and he's been sacked from Marseille, but that probably doesn't put him in good light either, to be fair. So it's really hard to judge. But me personally, I probably would take him. It's probably one of the better sort of options, looking at the other opportunities that we do have or other options that we do have. But yeah, I'm for it. It's hard to judge, but I would take him.
Cam, thank you for kicking us off with that. Chris, can I come to you next? How do you feel about Roberto De Zerbi, and can you understand why he's split the fan base so much? And I just personally think it's split. I had Spurs fans say to me today that, 95% of us do want De Zerbi. Then someone said that nobody wants De Zerbi. So I don't think either of those things are true. I think it's somewhere in the middle. And before I come to you, I did put out a poll on X on my podcast page, Scarfey Spurs Talk, saying, would you like to see Tottenham Hotspur appoint Roberto De Zerbi? Put it out at 8 minutes past 1 today in the afternoon, to be exact. And 271 people have voted. This was screenshotted half an hour or so before the podcast. And at this time, 45% have said, yes, we want Tottenham to appoint De Zerbi. 37% said no, avoid. And 18%, that's a chunk, are undecided. And it'll be interesting to see how that poll ends up by the end of the day. But Chris, tell me about your position.
I don't know right now who we could get that's any better, especially if we're determined to appoint a permanent manager right now. I can't give you one other name that would be better than De Zerbi. I'm not saying he's the greatest manager of all time, but if we're not prepared to wait to the summer, and I understand why they're not. They've already appointed one interim, and that's gone like an absolute train wreck. So if they appointed a second one and that went the same way, they'd look like absolutely ridiculous. So I can kind of understand.
But can you understand people's concerns about De Zerbi in terms of his track record with numerous things, in terms of the person as a whole away from football?
Well, there's a couple of things there. I mean, first of all, on the length of contract, Tottenham are in no position to be dictating length of contracts here, really. The negotiating power of whoever they approach is ginormous. So pretty much they can just dictate terms to Tottenham without it getting ridiculous. So Spurs, I mean, what do you do if it's not De Zerbi and you don't? De Zerbi says he wants a 5-year contract. You're not prepared to give it to him. I don't know what the other option is. But in terms of the fan base being split, we're always split on absolutely everything for a start. The slightly tricky bit with De Zerbi is some of the slightly trickier topics around some of the Spurs fan groups have come out with statements against him, right, relating to Mason Greenwood.
And what do you think of that?
That is a whole can of worms for me. A couple of things I think about it. One, whilst what is out there about Mason Greenwood is quite unsavoury, he's not been found guilty of anything in a court of law. So I understand the nature of the topic. But I'm always slightly uncomfortable when the public decide that they should sort of act as the courts. He's not been found guilty of anything, but are we going to then say that me or anyone else is in a position to judge him? I don't know. It's not an easy topic. The only other thing I do think with fans a lot is there is very selective outrage in football. So, for example, no issue with if you're against De Zerbi for the comments he made. I don't think he made that bad comments. I'll be honest. I've read what he said. I think he's in a slightly difficult position. If the people in charge at Marseille have decided to employ Greenwood, what is he supposed to do? He's never come out and said like what he did was a good thing or condoned it in any way. He's just kind of said Greenwood's from his experience, it wasn't that bad. The only other thing quickly I was going to say, Harry, is I think football fans are often two-faced, because how many of us, when it comes to someone like Paul Gascoigne, is going to go and condemn Paul Gascoigne, who's got all sorts of convictions that are quite unsavoury. So I don't know. I try and avoid all of these things because I think football fans are very disingenuous with their opinions on many things.
Okay, Chris, thank you very much. Simon, if I come to you, what is your position? But in particular, can you understand people's concerns? A lot of people look at this and go, we simply cannot defend this man. And the Greenwood instance, one thing, that's probably I think it is the worst of the two. But the other one is the incident, I think it was Kobe of Marseille, where he's swear goodness knows how many times on the training ground, quite publicly, very loudly in front of everybody, then say, call your agent. I look at that personally, and this is something that's easy to talk about without scrutiny, but I look at that and go, that is not what these players need right now. And I could be wrong about it. I think they need a lift rather than that shouting out. I'm not going to say he's going to come in there and do that. But even from a football point of view, I have my own concerns about that. And also the fact that he come in at Brighton his first 5 games, there wasn't one win in there. But we'll get on to all of that. From a morals point of view, do you have any concerns at all with bringing in Roberto De Zerbi? Will it cause further division amongst his fan base at a time where they've just come together before that Nottingham Forest game?
Absolutely. I mean, I want to choose my words carefully here. Let me back up a little bit just to give you my full context. So first, I think appointing a long-term coach is the right thing to do. I think we should have done that, from the beginning after we sacked Frank. When you get to that kind of decision, he will be one of the names that you consider, because if you look at him tactically and his coaching ability, he's proven that he can do it at this level. As a tactician, he's probably one of the most influential tactical minds we've seen in the game the last 10 years. And he's available, right? And we need someone now. There's not a lot of coaches with his name recognition and experience available. Now, to me, when I look at a coach, and especially when I look at a coach that is coming into our club right now, I kind of have to look at it through a couple of different criteria, right? Yes, you have the tactical and stylistic, aspect of it. And right there, you can definitely make a case for him. But then we come to what you were talking about, which is character and leadership. And even if I don't go deeply into the fact that our club specifically is so neurotic, anxious, and has been through so much, and has a board and ownership group that are so weak and afraid to communicate with fans, we especially need a strong leader that could communicate with fans and can set a direction and has a temperament to lead us over a longer time, which is what a long-term coach is, right? And if you look at De Zerbi historically, he's volatile and he's shown himself to be morally questionable. His integrity can be questioned. And so a volatile type of coach, we've seen how that works at Spurs. Conte is a great example. Jose doesn't really mix well with our coach, with our culture, and with our club. And especially at a time like now, we need someone that could stabilize us and is a steady hand and can be trusted to have the temperament to lead us through this and have the patience and temperament not to, stick with the project over a couple of years. And to me, he fails when it comes to that criteria. When it comes to the moral thing, I think it's hard to argue that he didn't apologize or at least excuse Greenwood. He could have been. I agree with Chris. We don't know everything around that situation. Did he himself initiate or approve bringing Greenwood in? Was he just dropped in his lap? That matters. When he was asked about him, I think he went beyond what he could have. I mean, he basically said, poor, he's a good guy. I think he's been treated, exceptionally bad. Now,
he went up and beyond, didn't he? He went up and beyond. That's the thing.
To me, he did. I think it's valid for people to at least accuse him of being an apologist for that behavior. Now, just because he said those things, I think that it doesn't, to me at least, just makes it what's the name I'm looking for? It doesn't totally disqualify him, but it makes it something huge that he will have to address, right? It's going to be one of the big first questions he'll be asked when he's appointed, and how he answers and how he explains that is going to be a big thing. And if he doesn't answer that to satisfaction, I think that's going to be, something he's going to be stuck with for a long time. And even if he, has an explanation, I think a lot of fans from the beginning are going to have a hard time following him. And I think that matters because we've seen how quickly things can change. And a coach that, has a lot of goodwill with the fan base will get more time, right? And then the last thing is this contract that we're seeing being the last criteria to me is the structure of the deal, right? And so it's rumored to be a 5-year deal, and if he's going to be one of the most paid coaches in the league, it's going to be up towards 15 million a year. Now, that in itself, I think Chris, as Chris said, we're not in a position to bargain, but if you match that with the volatility, that makes this a pretty risky, a risky deal for us because, what happens if he, quits after 18 months? That's, what, 50, 60 million that we owe him.
Well, if we go down, he walks out, doesn't he, in the summer? Let's be honest about it.
But I'm saying if he sticks around, right? Now, he's such a good coach that he would probably get a new job pretty quickly. If he does okay at Spurs, but I think, to me, the volatility with the length and the amount of money we're talking about makes that last criteria something that he doesn't pass either. So to me, just looking at the deal from a big picture, point of view, makes it, totally reasonable to be, skeptical.
Okay, Simon, thank you very much. A couple of stats then. So Roberto De Zerbi has only lasted more than 91 games at a club once in his managerial career so far. Half of his club roles have lasted 30 games or even less. He didn't even get to the 2-year mark at Brighton or Marseille. Cam, I come to you. Does that concern you personally? The fact that he isn't going to, hasn't previously, I should say, stuck around for very long. But on top of that as well, his first 5 games at Brighton were as followed. 3-3 draw at Liverpool. That's not bad. But a 1-0 defeat to us in Tottenham. 2-0 defeat against Brentford. 0-0 draw with Nottingham Forest. And a 3-1 defeat to Man City. Does that concern you? We'll add that some of those games were very tough in there. But ultimately, it's 3 defeats and 2 draws in his first 5 games at Brighton. We can't have that, can we, at Tottenham?
Yeah, I think when you put it that way, it's not exactly looking bright, is it? Because I think we've got 7 games left this season. So if it goes anything like this on the screen here, then we're definitely going down. But hopefully he can have a good start. And I mean, with the situation we're in, hopefully he can turn us around. Yeah, it's definitely concerning for sure, because we've offered him a 5-year deal. He's going to be one of the highest paid managers in the Premier League. And he can't even last 2 years at Brighton or Marseille. And, when you last 2 years at one club, that's one thing. But you lost 2 years at 2 clubs, not even 2 years at both the clubs you were recently hired from. It's definitely concerning for sure, and I think that's definitely something that the club might have to look at. If the deal's not done already, I don't know what on earth they're doing. But I think Simon, I think you want to say something. I do think you wanted to add to something there.
No, I just want to say the volatility we're talking about is not. It's not just him speaking that way to players. It's him quitting jobs, right? Just exploding, not being able to work with people over a longer time, right? And we know our team needs a lot of work. As Chris pointed out, this isn't the strongest squad ever, right? So what happens if he's with us for a couple of months, buys a couple of players, and then he just goes, I'm tired of this now. I get that we're assessing things from a position of fear, right? And I think fear is informing a lot of people's opinions on this. They're scared of going down, and so a big name comes up and they want to go for it. And I think that might even be, it's not only valid, it might be the right decision just to keep us up. But if we just look at it, from a cold-hearted, logical standpoint, I think there's definitely things to worry about.
Can I just make one point though?
Yes,
I do. I don't know where this has come from, Harry, the Brighton thing, whether you've come up with it or you've got it from somewhere else. But I always look for a bit of balance. So if we're only going to look at these 5 results, that for me is coming from a place of somebody who definitely doesn't like him. Because if we do exactly the same for Marseille, he's won 4 and drawn 1 of his first 5 games.
That's very true. That's very true. But this is the reason it's relevant. I personally are undecided on Roberto De Zerbi. I'll throw that out there. You probably saw the poll that I brought up. I voted in that undecided in my own poll. The reason I bring this up, Chris, is because Premier League is totally different. As you will know, Tudor does very well, has an instant impact, comes to the Premier League, his results aren't very good. So I would argue back at that and say that it's absolutely vital that we look at the first 5 games when he was last in, the only time he was in fact, the Premier League. Because if we start like this in these 5 games, we're done for. So right, doing it for Marseille, can he do it in the Premier League? It's a question in the first 5 games. He's had 1 opportunity and he's failed at that.
If I'm going to get context, look at this is 22, right? So it's us under Ange, it's Liverpool under Klopp.
But like I said, it's hard games, very, very hard games in there. So that's the outside.
Nottingham had a good season, and then it's City. So it's pretty hard schedule.
Very.
Yeah, I'm not on board of that as a way of picking the next manager. Otherwise, we'll just go back to Ange Postecoglou, right?
But you're not concerned, though, that the first 5 games that we've got to get a victory or 2 in that. Otherwise, we're in serious, serious trouble with the Premier League.
Yeah, but then I would judge that across his whole career. Not you've picked out, 5 games? Of how many games has he managed in his career?
I picked out his first 5 because I think it's important that we make an instant impact. We've only got 7, Chris, for context.
First
And
5
you're
in
right, at
one
Marseille.
game. And again,
He
you
had
can
an impact
argue,
at Marseille, but
it
not of his other
lacks,
clubs.
just picking out 5 games out of his entire career lacks almost any context, right? Because you can easily argue.
It could only be, but he could only be here for 7. That's the point. You've got to start well.
But then these 5 games he'd never managed in the Premier League ever before, but now he's got 2 years worth of managing in the Premier League.
And we're all hoping he does better if he's here, of course.
So I just don't think presenting that in isolation without looking at everything else, I don't think it's a very balanced way of looking at it, personally.
Fair enough. I agree to disagree, but fair enough. Chris, can I stick with you, though? Because a lot of people, well, I say a lot of people, a couple of people, a few people are saying that they'd actually rather, so I couldn't believe seeing this, but rather us get relegated than us appoint Roberto De Zerbi. Again, I don't want to put names out there, but there are people suggesting this, that they've got quite a big platform on social media. What do you make of that type of comment? Does that just go too far for you?
Sorry, say that again. I missed it. But what comment was it?
No, just saying comments in general to say that some Spurs fans would rather us go down than appoint Roberto De Zerbi.
Look,
is that concern? Is that too far? Way too far.
It doesn't matter what manager we were linked with right now. Some people would make the most silly things. I mean, this is what social media has become, right? It's as much, and you know this, Harry, because you're not saying that you do this, but you're in the world where a lot of your sort of other channels that you might sort of compete against will just say things for the sake of it, just to be edgy and get views and likes and watches.
Unfortunately, that's where we're different.
Exactly. So things like that, you'll always get it. It doesn't matter. If we're appointing Pep Guardiola now, there are some people who would go, what a terrible appointment, just because they know it's controversial and it would drive views and that kind of thing. So that's silliness for me to say that they'd rather go down, unless if they're taking a massive moral position because of non-football stuff.
That is what people are saying. That's the sole reason. Yeah,
I respect their right to take that position if that's what they want to do. I'm not really offering a view on it because I think it gets really murky, right? I mean, how many of us were outraged when we carried on playing Hugo Lloris after he was done for drink driving? Like, how far do we take this? It's a tough topic.
Chris, that is a very, very good point. Before we move on then from De Zerbi to some quick-fire questions and other candidates if De Zerbi falls through or doesn't happen, Cam, I was asked by someone that they want their name to remain anonymous, but they asked me if I could ask the panel tonight whether they think, or you guys think, ultimately the club are out of touch. And this comment as well said about how they just believe that they are out of touch, especially with this appointment, if it goes through, Roberto De Zerbi, believing it could cause more division. I think it's a very valid point to mention. Are you worried that this could divide the fans more? And the flip side of that, I suppose, is when he joins, do you think that those that don't want him, that'll quieten down, soften down a little bit once he has joined?
I think honestly depends on how De Zerbi starts, to be honest, because if he starts really well, I think the fans are going to very quickly forget about, the controversy, if you like, behind this appointment or whatever. But I think if he starts badly, then things are just going to get even worse. But it does almost as if seem like, because at the start of the season, right, I feel like the club were really, they were communicating with the fans constantly, weren't they? They were always like, okay, what do the fans want? What do the fans need? What do the fans want? And now we're in this situation where we're definitely not doing as well as we would at the start of the season. And now it just seems like they're not really listening to the fans. Have almost kind of forgotten about us. They're not really listening to us in any way. That's a lot of what I've heard from the fans recently. And before the De Zerbi links as well, there wasn't too much attention towards that. Like I wasn't hearing many fans at all really say De Zerbi's name when it was like, what manager do Tottenham, or what manager would you want Tottenham to appoint? It was always, we need someone who knows Tottenham, someone who is associated with Tottenham to bring them in. I heard a lot of that. I heard a lot of Harry Redknapp. I heard a lot of Ryan Mason. I heard a lot of Pochettino, albeit Pochettino is pretty much almost impossible at this stage, but I did hear Pochettino as well. And then suddenly, the club just randomly come out with Roberto De Zerbi. So, I really don't know, to be fair, but if he starts well, I think the fans will be behind it for sure. I think fans just want results at this rate. It really, for me personally, it really doesn't matter who we bring in. As long as they keep us up, I'm happy. Doesn't seem the way for maybe some other parts of the fan base. But I do feel that if he starts well, people are going to be behind him. I really hope, or I think everyone will be behind him, but I think the vast majority will be behind him if he starts well. If he doesn't start well, then it's not looking good. Let's put it that way.
Not looking good at all. Simon, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I don't think we should assume that if he does well, it will go away. Arteta is doing pretty well, but it doesn't mean that how he defended our party has gone away. There's a lot of women who support this club, and they've seen those they've heard those tapes, and they've seen those pictures, and I think there are a lot of people that won't get over it, right? Now, I think it's important to separate, Greenwood and De Zerbi. De Zerbi didn't do this, but he will have to, if he doesn't, address it, I think it will, follow him around, right? And if he doesn't address it, it will be a distraction. And so I think that you have to look at it from both those kind of angles. The distraction from the media and the fact that the fan base keeps talking about it, debating it, and then how you feel about the man. If you can follow him, if you can like him, if you can, accept him as the coach. And so, the sound will definitely quiet down from us if he does well, but doesn't mean it will quiet down from other fans, and we won't hear about it and have to defend it and so on. So,
okay, Simon, thank you. And as far as I know, 3, there will be more, but I've seen 3 anyway. So club supporters groups that have been openly against it go quite massively in terms of got Proud Lily White, Spurs Reach, and also Women of the Lane who have taken a big public stance again, which has been popular, I will say, liked by a lot of people. That's why ultimately I brought this to the table in terms of De Zerbi, because I do worry it could cause more division. And the scenes we saw against Nottingham Forest, I know it didn't directly help the team on the pitch, but ideally we want that. We want to be together. Will this appointment cause further divide ultimately? We hope absolutely not. Quick fire questions then, which is always difficult. I'd much prefer asking them than answering them. I will absolutely put that on the record. I have 3 for you. We're going to go around the whole panel. We do 1 and go through you all. So literally just 1 word. Chris, I'll start with you. I think I know the answer to this one based on what you've said, but I planned it anyway, so I'll mention it. Would you prefer right now at this stage an interim or permanent manager? Just the word interim or permanent.
Permanent.
Chris, thank you. Simon?
Permanent.
Cam?
Permanent.
Lovely, you're all in agreement. Maybe it gets a little bit tougher, perhaps. So if I said to you, right, and this is never going to happen, so don't worry, so it's literally beyond hypothetical at that point, but Frank or Tudor, with 7 games to go, who would you rather in charge? Who do you think is more likely to keep Tottenham in the Premier League? Because ultimately we are in a relegation battle, whether we like it or not. Chris, I'm going to pick on you again, unfortunately, and go with you first. Frank or Igor Tudor for these 7 games?
Not a tough one for me. I'd take Thomas Frank, no question.
I'm in agreement. Thank you. Cam?
Yeah, I'd probably take Thomas Frank as well.
Simon?
Tudor.
Okay, interesting. Thank you very much. And the last one then, which based on your comments again, I'm likely to know the answer to, but again, thought about it before. Frank, Tudor or De Zerbi? So to add De Zerbi to this question for the final 7 games. Interesting. Chris, I'll come to you. Frank, Tudor or De Zerbi with 7 games to go? Who's most likely to keep Tottenham up? It's not necessarily about being a better coach. It's about that short-term performance and delivering results.
Yeah, look, the other 2, there's too much history and it's not gone well. We need something fresh. So, yeah, De Zerbi.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Cam?
Yeah, what Chris said, De Zerbi. I think Frank's already proven he isn't fit for it. Tudor, exactly the same, just in a short span. Yeah, De Zerbi.
Cam, thank you. Simon, you in agreement? Would it be De Zerbi or would it be Igor Tudor or Thomas Frank?
No, I'm De Zerbi probably.
De Zerbi as well. Okay, thank you.
We're just talking about 7 games. Him just going in there and being rough with them and waking everyone up, and getting some tactics in there that could be successful, yeah, De Zerbi is the better coach of the three.
Simon, thank you, and also big thanks to Cam and Chris there. Don't worry, you're all safe for this episode for now anyway, because the quickfire questions are over. Unless I think of another, I'm not going to ask anymore. But I do have one closing question, because unlike the club, the board, the owners, I myself and the podcast always have a plan B. And what is going to happen ultimately if De Zerbi turn around and go, no, stuff you, or no? As simple as that, even without an explanation. So the plan B, I don't think there will be one, but we're going to come up with on what we would do. Cam, can I start with you? If it's not De Zerbi, who would you appoint? And just to help you all out a little bit here, you probably would have seen, but some of the names that have been mentioned on multiple occasions by more than one source are Harry Redknapp, Tim Sherwood, Sean Dyche, even Ben Davis, Glenn Hoddle, Chris Shuton. So there's a lot of names on there. Some would say this gets to the point of desperation. I'd agree with that personally. But for you, who would be on your list if De Zerbi is a no-go?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough decision for sure. I don't think the board will have any plan B for that record. I don't think they'll know what they're doing at all. But I think it's at the point of desperation. And for me personally, I'm bringing in Harry Redknapp. I mean, bro, there's no other really person to go for, is there? I mean, I know you've got all the other kind of Tottenham boys as well, but I mean, for me personally, get in Harry Redknapp, try and get us out of this mess. I know there's Sean Dyche as well, but I don't know about Sean Dyche. I mean, he brought Forest, into the situation that we're in almost as well. So,
well, I'd push back on that slightly. Sorry to be a pain, but as far as I know, they're in the same position when he took over to when he left. I thought it was a harsh sacking, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I know, but compared to how they done last season on the Nuno, and then how they've done this season as well, I know they've got Europe as well, but yeah, I don't know. I'm especially, I know that Tudor's different as well, but I just feel like Dyche compared to like someone who knows more about Tottenham. I'm taking someone like Redknapp. It sounds ridiculous to say, but we're in a situation of desperation. I'll take Redknapp.
Okay, thank you. I certainly think he can say the right things, can lift the players, can tell his story about who he's coaching to those foreign players that may not have heard of him. I think that's a very important point to make that Dustin made on the last episode of the podcast. But the game has moved on. There's no hiding that. As you can apply it in a horrible way of saying it, but the game has ultimately moved on. But I think it's a very good shout nonetheless. Simon, for you, De Zerbi doesn't happen. Plan B. Do you think A, the club will have one, but B, what would be your plan B? If you're in the club position, who would you be contacting? Who would you want to appoint?
I'd probably go for a short-term coach, just for these 7 games. And maybe going for Dyche if I'm looking for someone more long-term. Maybe Maresca, Xavi, who's available now. Maresca is a pretty good coach.
He'd probably be the summer as well, wouldn't he? Maybe someone more with affiliation to the
What's that?
Right? What'd you make of that suggestion?
What suggestion? You cut out.
Ben Davis. Yeah, did cut out. Sorry. Typical time, isn't it? Always. Ben Davis. What'd you make of that?
No.
Not at all? Not even with as assistant or something? Or just a complete no?
No.
Okay. Sure.
I wouldn't wish that on Davis. I like him too much.
Keep going up. Chris, give me your thoughts on who it should be. The club don't want me to ask this question because they know they don't have a plan B, but I'm going to try and battle for an Oscar anyway, battle through the internet. What would be your plan B?
Yeah, I'm going to end up sounding like I'm going to contradict myself. But the one thing I don't really get is this knows the club thing. I don't really know what it means. There's
it's the emotions that fans. We have to say emotion out of it sometimes.
There's something called the Theseus paradox around if you've got a ship and over years you replace every single part of that ship, is it still the same ship? Or for those who watched Only Fools and Horses, Trigger's broom. Like Harry Redknapp, the ground's different, the training ground's different, the board's different, the players are different. It's only the fans that aren't different. So I struggle with it. And also there's loads of examples where that's no means a guarantee of anything, right? Like Alan Shearer took over Newcastle in a similar position and got them relegated. Like Lundberg at Arsenal, Lampard at Chelsea. So I don't really get it, and I don't buy into the need to know the club. And then just to complete the contradiction fully, so if we didn't get De Zerbi, I don't really see that we're going to get a meaningful long-term appointment right now. So I agree with Simon. I go short-term, and I probably would go with Harry Redknapp, not because he knows the club necessarily. Because in all honesty, my belief would be, does Lucas Bergvall know who the earth Harry Redknapp is? Like most of these players were kids when Redknapp.
Could he tell them who he's coached? You know, Modric, for example.
Sure.
I mean, the list goes on: Modric, Bale, etc.
Sure, but as a young man, I think you want someone you can identify with. I'm not massively sure that a 79-year-old guy walking in instantly gets that level of respect. But nonetheless, I've just said Harry Redknapp. So there's got to be a reason, and the reason for me is I think we're beyond really what reaction the players give, but what it would do at least is it would make the stadium united and electric, and that might give us a small percentage increase in performance and chance. That's the only reason why I would go with, and that knows the club. That's why I wouldn't go with a Sherwood or a Hoddle, or because I don't think there's anyone else who would walk in right now who would get the fans as excited or united as Harry Redknapp. So that's the reason why I'd say Harry Redknapp, not because he managed us years ago and it was great, but that's all nostalgia, right? That's all. We were great then. Why don't we go and get Keith Birkinshaw? Like, he's still alive. It doesn't make any sense for me.
Okay, thank you for being honest about that. Well, one thing we do know is it won't be that man next to him in Jermaine Defoe, because he's recently taken a new job with Woking, so it definitely will not be him. So that's for sure. And I'd argue, and I could be wrong about this, but I think it's gone so far now that Redknapp is like, oh, I'm going to be on I'm a Celebrity. I think he's gone too late. I think he's waiting for that phone call, probably sitting next to the phone. It's just gone past that point where I reckon he couldn't even say no at this point and choose I'm a Celebrity over Tottenham. That really shows how far we have fallen. On that note, I think that just wraps up nicely for this episode. A lot covered, an awful lot to talk about. So I'm really impressed that we've done it in just under 62 minutes now. We've reached the 62-minute mark. Let's go through then and see if we can find my guests on social media. Chris, thank you firstly for your time. Where can people follow you? And did you see that survey carried out about VAR? And if you did, what do you think of
a slight bit of nonsense, really, just because of the way the survey was constructed means that you can't. I've got a degree in stats. You can't really draw the conclusions. I've also got a master's degree, but I didn't want to mention that, But now you're forcing me to. It's like anything, but it's basically a bit of clickbait, right? It's a bit, this is what the survey says. I'm not sure it really does necessarily, but look, it is what it is. But I'm not saying that fans don't dislike VAR, by the way. I think that's a fairly safe conclusion that they do. But yeah, if you want VAR debates, then X is the only place where I have an actual profile as such, or I'd sometimes just haunt some Spurs channels on YouTube if they're unlucky enough to need me as a guest, which occasionally you are.
That's very harsh to say. We enjoy having you on, Chris. Thank you very much. All I will say on that matter, though, with refereeing is that I'm confident, based on what you've said and just based on my own opinion, that VAR, if it ever is, I don't think it will be, but removed, I think give it a few years, all of a sudden fans will be like, oh, do you remember these good times with VAR? I think people will be that short-term memory. I think football fans, I think there's been an investigation in terms of the short-term memory and simple things like someone told me the other day, oh, you never defended Thomas Frank. And I'm thinking, are you joking? Is this that you having a laugh? I couldn't got any further in my defence of the guy. And people doing the same with Ange. You wanted him out. That's not the case. Go back and have a look before, if you have short-term memory, fine.
Ange out. I remember the discussions.
Thank you. I'm glad it's not just me. I thought I was going crazy. But that's the thing. People I just honestly, beyond belief. People try the other day to support that evidence, by the way. Someone found a post when Ange went, when I said, now it's time to move on. You can't use that against me. I'm trying to move on from the situation that I've been defending for a long time. So people need to, have a look at themselves sometimes. But Chris, thank you very much. Before I say any more, I will stop there. So, Simon, thank you very much for coming on. Where can people follow you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter, just my name. If you're on YouTube, you can see my name right there. It's the same name on Twitter or X. No, I don't have anything to promote. I don't even think you asked me if I had anything to promote, but I'm happy to be back on the pod, hearing some British accents again. Been watching a lot of American TV, and it feels comforting to hear your British pompous accent. Makes me feel luxurious.
Oh, it's gone big there. Gone big.
Very, very, very big. But Simon, thank you very much for your
Thank you for
time.
having me
Enjoy
on.
the rest of your day as well. No, anytime, you're always welcome. Thank you. It's been a little while. And Cam, lastly, thank you very much for coming on. Potentially could be on with me tomorrow as well with the Premier League podcast. If people don't know, I do now have a second podcast as well. It's also 2 episodes a week. That's Premier League. And I've set it up at a time where I don't know Tottenham's Premier League status, so that could become quite awkward. Maybe didn't think that through entirely properly. If you like, the vetting process wasn't very good. But Cam, where can people follow you on the socials? Because you have a new YouTube channel as well, so please do plug that.
Yeah, it's been good to be on. I think it's been a great episode as well. You can find me there, THFC_Cam on Twitter, on YouTube as well. Cam Talks Football as well. Gonna have videos out soon. I've said that the past few times now. I still don't. So
Now's the time to do it. Now's the time. New manager
the time to do it.
potentially. International break. Utilize it.
Exactly. Everyone's going to be, I hope, at home, very bored. Go subscribe to me there, though. You can go follow me on Twitter as well. And yeah, thank you for having me on.
No worries, Cam. Thank you very much. Yeah, people do check out all my fabulous guests as well with the podcast. Please do subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. Follow if you're listening on podcast platforms. Get in touch where you listen from in terms of what country. Let us know where and what you thought as well of the episode and also what platform. But no, thank you very much. And while there's a sleep in the international break, we keep on delivering 2 episodes every single week. There is always something to talk about with Tottenham. So there's no time for a break. That's what the end of the season is for, even if we do take that. But away from Tottenham, if you want even more, I mean, you're probably sick of football knowing how Tottenham have been this season. But if for some reason you're crazy like me and want a little bit more, do check out the Scarfey Talks Premier League podcast for more. 2 episodes a week, bringing like-minded Premier League fans together of different clubs, having sensible conversations that people should be able to do. But sadly, many can't in 2026. But my goal is to change that. And we have managed to do that. Big guests on every single week. So check that out. That's just got to 80 subscribers in a couple of weeks. Thank you very, very much. But for the Scarfey Spurs podcast, thank you for all the support. Last 2 months as well, beaten last word on Spurs 2 months in a row for the net public views just on YouTube in the last 30 days. So we're here and we're here to stay and here to compete and deliver content for you. Thank you very much. On that note, have a good day, good evening, good afternoon, and up the Spurs.